Thank you, and thank you for letting me participate this morning. I've been involved in this issue for probably a little over a month now, and when I first heard of these services, immediately thought of an exclusion that was in the policy, and I actually brought some of it for you to look at this morning as part of the record. Just to be clear, you can use a personal car for business, but there are specific businesses you cannot use it for, where it's excluded. I can use it as a pharmaceutical rep going from doctor's office to doctor's office, but I specifically cannot use it and have coverage if I'm using it while it's being used to carry persons or property for a fee. And that's really what this whole issue has been about. So we've heard testimony this morning that well, there's a policy out there with James River that provides coverage and that may or may not drop down. So I don't lead a very exciting life, but I did read this policy. And it's funny, it's like the last page, almost the last line that you really have to pay attention to. And it says, named operators under endorsement, gives the number, are insured provided such drivers are using a covered auto you don't own, hire, or borrow in your business or personal affairs, and have entered into a contract with one or more of the named insureds prior to the time of the accident. So that sort of opened up another can of worms. We heard the insurance commissioner testify, well, he hasn't reviewed all the contracts, he's read the policy, right? Well, that immediately said to me, I better look at the contract. What's in the contract? So there's a section in the contract for one of the companies that testified today that says there's some requirements for the driver. And if the driver doesn't meet these requirements, he's in breach of the contract, okay? Which then raised questions in my mind, should I contact the insurance company to see if they've actually been paying or denying claims because the contract was in breach? And the fact is that a lot of these claims are being denied because they're using the breach provision in this contract that they weren't actually insured under the policy at the time. So that's why we need to do legislation that really buttons down this issue, because it is a different animal. It's not the traditional, here's the auto policy, let's go to the PUC, get filings made, and it's a policy that's covered, that's owned by a company that's driving. I applaud these companies for being innovative. I think it's a great service. We as legislators just need to do what you're doing today to make sure we vet this properly and protect the public. Because the two people that are really at risk right now are the driver. He's financially at risk because he could be involved in a serious accident or maybe one that's not so serious. Let's face it, if you're doing this, signing on as a driver, you probably need the extra cash, right? So you probably don't have a lot of assets to risk. So we want to make sure that that policy, in my opinion, as an insurance professional, would be to make sure that their policy is primary. We can't, in my recommendation, make the limits too onerous that the marketplace is not available to provide coverage that we're mandating. And the reason I say that, I'm in the process of trying to determine if there are other markets available. James River right now is not writing any new types of business along these lines because they sort of want to get their arms around it. They're not a real large insurance company, maybe a couple $100 million in surplus. But I think they've done a nice job in tailoring a policy, but it's the contract provisions. I don't think we should be enabling, we're basically setting up, if we let this continue, setting up the driver to fail in the event that there's an accident. Thank you.